All right, I have just after 11 o'clock, so we are ready to get started today. Welcome on behalf of Plano Public Library. My name is Kristen Linscott, and I am the development coordinator. I work with community partnerships, and we are so happy to have today part of our Living Well series. This is the third in our Living Well series. And please note that if you have any questions today, you can type them into the chat. We're happy to take your questions. Sabrina is our tech who is monitoring the Zoom. So if you have any technical questions or difficulties, she can help you out with that. We'll also be sure to leave time for questions at the end of the program. And Sabrina and I will be watching the chat. So if you have questions, you are welcome to put them in there. Keeping your mind and body active and engaged is important. Plano Public Library is pleased to partner with several organizations with resources to assist you. Along with opportunities to learn something new at the library, these Living Well programs will connect you with information, programs, and services to assist you in getting the most out of life. You'll find recordings of the past sessions on the library's YouTube channel, which I'll drop into the chat later in the program. Today, we have Nora Gravois with the Wellness Center for Older Adults with us today to discuss information about maximizing overall health and the kinds of services that are available at the Wellness Center for Older Adults. Nora Gravois is a licensed master's level social worker of 33 years, providing counseling services and caregiver supports at the Wellness Center for Older Adults. She's worked with families and individuals regarding birth to end of life issues. The last 10 years, she's been helping clients and caregivers with management of dementia-related needs in home and facility care, dealing with hospice, transition, adjustment, grief, and loss issues. We're so happy to have Nora with us today. Thank you, Nora.
Thank you so much. I'm just thrilled that you've invited us to be a part of this series, and want to especially thank you for allowing the Wellness Center for Older Adults to be able to share what is the Living Well factor. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to go through some slides to talk a little bit about the Wellness Center for Older Adults and the services that we provide, but also some of the things that I want to encourage our listeners to be involved in and to pay attention to. And if there's anything that we can do to help support those goals that you may have for living well, that you will let us know at the Wellness Center for Older Adults. Our mission at the Wellness Center for Older Adults is to assist older adults in achieving their highest level of physical and mental well-being. We do that through three main pillars. The first of those being health services. We have a nurse on staff who is able to provide wellness screenings, provide lab work. We have a lending support closet that has a variety of durable medical equipment that is available with no cost. Our counseling services, which is something that I am responsible for, includes individual counseling, group counseling, caregiver supports, both individually and in a group, and one of our many programs that we call Memory Cafe, which is an effort to help caregivers and their loved one for whom they are caring a chance to engage with one another in a way that brings joy. Sometimes caregivers can get very burdened by the tasks and duties of caregiving. So Memory Cafe allows us an opportunity to facilitate engagement between a caregiver and their loved one for whom they're caring. Our social and support tier involves several of our programs, which I will address in more detail later, but it involves helping seniors maintain independence. So our Project Independence is a program that provides services and supports so that folks can stay at home as long as it's safe and as long as possible. We have several gatekeeper programs that involves housing for homeless, for those who are at risk of losing their housing, and in efforts to prevent homelessness. And then we have a wonderful social worker on staff who is incredibly knowledgeable about all of the resources and supports and services here in Collin County. So we have an information, resource, referral, and assistance support that we're able to provide. All of that falls under the main goal of being able to provide programming, services, and supports for older adults, 55 and older, in an educational focus, because we do feel like that providing education is a main construct to be able to provide to persons. So our mission, our goal is to achieve your highest well-being. So how do we do that? How do you do that? I know that you've probably all at some point or another been familiar with different dimensions of health and wellness, well-being, living well, lots of phrases, lots of quotes, lots of programs that are available either online or in a lot of services organizations. And they usually involve physical well-being. What are you doing? How are you doing with your physical environment? Your environmental well-being. How is the actual environment structured? How are risks reduced by the placement of furniture or hazards that are just in your everyday world? Cognitive well-being, involves what are you doing for your mind? What are you doing to keep your mind sharp? Then there's the dimension of spiritual well-being, which refers to a sense of balance. It doesn't necessarily refer to religion or a practice of religion, but more a sense of connection with all of the spheres in your life and balance. How are you maintaining balance between your inner self and outer self? And then social well-being is a question that involves social relationships, engagement with others, fellowship in different activities and groups, engagement with activities and programs. And then psychological well-being is your mental health. And so lots of programs revolve around the dimension of psychological well-being. What are you doing to maintain your highest self? There are a lot of different programs that you see advertising regarding aging. There are different focus and methods and models of trying to encourage us to maintain our highest level of well-being. There are even graphs with algorithms that can tell us how to maintain a healthy, active, productive, and successful self. I went online just to kind of see what could I possibly say that folks have not heard before. And so I actually found an ultimate guide to aging well, which promises to provide diet, exercise, and health tips. All of these things are so important, and there are so many opportunities to learn how to achieve your highest well-being out there. But the question that I find most often in some of my sessions and in groups and in talking with folks as they age is the real challenge is defining my own living well factor. How do I define that? How do I determine whether or not I'm living well? I may have limitations. I may have physical disabilities. I may have cognitive areas that prevent me from functioning and thinking and focusing. I may have other areas in my life that challenge me. So if I'm not 100% where I want to be, how can I define my own living well factor? And that's the challenge I'm going to issue today as we talk through this. You'll notice the slide that I'm presenting refers to physical well-being. And I'm not going to go over each of these individually. I just hope that as you look at this screen, you find something that you are actively involved in. Are you intentionally eating healthy foods? Are you intentionally setting time aside during the day to do some type of short walk, physical mobility, physical activity, something that, as a therapist once told me, just move. Sometimes when our physical well-being is not at its best, I wonder if we are just moving. Are we taking breaks to get our body up and going? Are we signed into classes? Are we taking advantage of opportunities that places like the library and senior centers and community centers provide? Are we getting a good night's sleep? What are we doing that is for ourselves addressing our physical well-being? Cognition involves mental, cognitive, and emotional well-being. Cognition can be affected by nutrition, by diet, by exercise. It can be affected by what we're putting into our minds. What are we listening to? What are we watching? What kind of conversations are we having? And so I ask you each to think about, as you look at this slide, what areas of my cognition am I being intentional about? Um, and then our spiritual well-being, as I mentioned earlier, it has more to do with balance. It's not necessarily about religion. I hear from a lot of folks that I don't practice a religion, so I don't have a spiritual well-being. And so in that case, I'm just going to challenge you to think about, what am I doing to find balance between my body, my mind, and my inner self? That part of me that might be unspoken, that part of me that I may not share with other people externally, but do I feel a sense of balance? Because living well as we age is really a lot about understanding myself. I think we're all familiar with this imagery of growing older. It is inevitable that we are all growing older. I know that in our society, especially the American society and culture, we don't like to talk about things as we get towards the right side of those images. Oftentimes, we will have conversations about what our children are involved in, what we were involved in as children, the things that we enjoyed doing as young adults in our college years or high school years, in our business years, in our growing years when we were building a career or building a family, building a sense of community in a neighborhood. So we seem to find it very easy to talk about those things. But sometimes as we get on the other side of that imagery after retirement, we kind of stop talking to one another about our well-being, about changes that we're experiencing, whether they're physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, or cognitive. We tend to get quiet with one another and not share the realities of what it means to age. And I don't know whether that's just because we're not comfortable with that or because we don't have practice at it. So my challenge to us today is to become comfortable and be willing to practice those conversations about living well as I age. And that includes the latter end of that imagery and growing towards the end of our life. I use this slide to illustrate what I mean when I say living well means understanding myself as I age. I think a lot of us can look at this slide and maybe reflect back, no matter what age we physically are, that our minds say, I feel like that 25-year-old ballerina dancing and feeling free. I feel like that young man capable of achieving and accomplishing and doing anything that I want to do. But it's my body that has aged, not my mind, not my dreams, not my sense of self. But limitations have prevented me from living the image in the shadow. And so I encourage all of us to understand what is happening for my mind, what is happening in my spirit, what is happening in my inner self as I age. Because life is short. And a lot of times I hear folks at the end of their lives saying, what was I waiting for? Why didn't I do this before? Why did I stop myself from doing that dream or fulfilling that goal? And so the question I'm going to ask you to consider for just a little bit is, what am I waiting for? You know, if you go back to that screen a moment ago, we are all on this trajectory. We are all moving from childhood to adulthood and eventually resthood. And at some point in that stage, we're waiting. We're waiting for the next part of our life, the next season of our life, the next stage that we're going to go through. And if we can learn to become comfortable about talking about those stages, those seasons, those changes that we experience, then I believe that perhaps you can find your own living well factor. What does it mean for me to live well as I age? So what I want to encourage us to do is talk about what I call the aging ego. Some of you are probably familiar with Erik Erikson's stages of human development. Many of us are very familiar with those early stages. We have lots of conversations about our grandkids and about our children when they were younger, asking questions of one another like, is he walking yet? Is she turning over yet? Has she said her first word? Has he had a temper tantrum yet? we recognize and we ask questions about the development of our children, of our young children, of our elementary age, middle age, teenage children. And so I'm just going to briefly review the stages of psychosocial development according to Erik Erikson. And if you'll think about those, I'm guessing you can come up with an example. If we were meeting face to face, I would be asking you for some examples of times when you asked yourself these questions. We do have the chat box available. So if you have any questions or comments and would like to ask further questions, I really want to delve into those for you and with you. But as infants, our children are learning from the time they are born about trust or mistrust. When I cry, can I trust that I get my needs met? When I ask for something, even if I don't have words, and I point to it, do I know that my person who's taking care of me understands what I'm wanting and is able to provide that? So as infants and toddlers, they are learning trust and mistrust constantly. If I express myself, do I know and do I have confidence that my needs will be met? As toddlers and preschoolers, they're starting to learn autonomy versus shame and doubt. What can I do on my own versus what do I need help with? What can I feel good about accomplishing and what do I feel bad about not accomplishing? And so infants and toddlers are in these stages of development where they're learning these things based on their life experiences. When I have a temper tantrum, do I get fussed at? And then I learn, oh, I want to feel good about myself so I don't have temper tantrums. If I do something I'm not supposed to do and I get disciplined, am I learning autonomy or shame and doubt? I have questioned myself, what can I do and what can't I do? What am I able to do? What am I not able to do? And then when you get into those early elementary grades, you start looking at initiative versus guilt. Sometimes even a 3-year-old, or you might start seeing those what we call terrible twos or terrific threes, where there's a lot of I can do it and no, let me do it, or maybe some of those temper tantrums that are at the point of proving that I can do something on my own. And so it's a learning about initiative. I can do this, I can try this, versus guilt. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that, or I shouldn't do that. And then when you start getting into grade school and teenage years, you start to see some of the industry versus inferiority. I start to establish whether or not I feel like I have talents. I practice something and I become good at it. I get lots of compliments. I get validation. And so I feel like, oh, I can do this myself. I am good at this. We start to identify some of those things that make us who we are versus inferiority. Someone who feels like they have constant ridicule, or when they try something and they fail, they don't feel like it's okay to fail. So they start to feel inferior, like I'm not able, I'm not capable, or I don't have that talent. I can remember for myself trying to do pole vaulting when I was way too young to try pole vaulting, but my older siblings were very successful. They were really good pole vaulters. And I can remember trying and I fell each and every time. And I convinced myself, oh, I'm never going to be good at pole vaulting. So that became an inferiority for me. I felt that if I tried it, I would fail at it. So I didn't try it. I started protecting myself, not taking those risks. And so we're, as young adults, teenagers, middle schoolers, we're practicing things. We're figuring out if we're good at it or not good at it. And it tends to create a sense of industry. I can do it. I'm good at this. Or inferiority. Oh, I'm not good at that, so I'm not going to try that anymore. I'm just going to accept maybe I'm not good at it. Then we get older. As we continue to get older, we have a lot of identity versus role confusion. We start to pay attention to what it means to have a role in life, a teacher versus a student, a boss versus an employee, a parent versus a child, a teenager versus a baby. And we start to figure out even that's where we discover and we're practicing and we're realizing relationships. What's my role in this relationship? What's my role in this friendship? A lot of time teenagers become the ones who are great listeners, right? So all their friends come to talk to them about that. So they grow up feeling like, oh, I'm a good listener. That must be my role in life. and it becomes natural, it becomes very comfortable. So versus role confusion versus identity, who I am, what I'm about, what my place is in different relationships, what my responsibilities are. There's a lot of attention nowadays about gender identity and role confusion and how we identify ourselves. And it's these kinds of conversations, these kinds of experiences that help us decide who we are on the inside. What's also happening as we continue to get older and become young adults and we start developing more close relationships, we have experiences of either intimacy or isolation. We're in relationships that give us a sense of positive validation and we want more of that. Or we find ourselves in relationships that hurt us, or we involve ourselves in activities that becomes painful experience rather than a positive experience. So we might tend to learn to isolate. You know, we back away, we withdraw, we avoid when we're isolating versus when we're excited or feel positive about intimacy, closeness, we tend to volunteer, we get involved, we say yes to invitations. And then as we become middle-aged and older adults, we have had a successful career, we've been involved in developing relationships, we've had positive and negative experiences, but we've been able to figure those out and take risks or decide, oh, I'm not going to risk that. After retirement, this is the development that we don't tend to talk about as much. After we've spent a lifetime raising kids, starting a career, having a career, being involved in community and volunteer activities, maybe even being involved in a church event, maybe being part of Rotary clubs and social clubs and community clubs, and we've been very, very active. And our career has taken a big part of our involvements. We tend to struggle with this idea of generativity versus stagnation. And this generativity is, okay, what's next? What do I do now? I've raised a family, I've had a career, I've served on this committee, I've been there, I've done that, I've seen that, I've been a part of that. Well, what's left for me? Except we say this a lot, and I wish you could see my quotations, get old. I'm retired. I'm getting old now. I'm gonna enjoy my golden years. We tend to use those kind of phrases, and I had air quotes around all of those. Because the question is, what can I still produce? What can I still be involved in? What can I still do that brings purpose and joy into my life? Versus the alternative, which is called stagnation. I'm really not accepting invitations anymore. I'm not risking a lot because I don't want to fail. I feel a sense of completion, like I've been there, done that. I have nothing else to learn. And so that's the struggle that a lot of folks after retirement tend to experience. And then the last one is integrity versus despair. And this is the kind of development that I hear, and I work with a lot of older adults, folks in their 80s, 90s, and even hundreds now. You know, we've got an old and a new old these days because folks are living longer. We have such advancements in technology, medical science, research, that it has given us longer life. But with that longer life comes oftentimes this challenge within us of generativity versus stagnation. And depending on where we are in those two, we tend to experience either integrity or despair. Integrity is looking back over your shoulder, looking back over your life and saying, wow, I really accomplished a lot. I feel good about what I've done. I feel good about the relationships in my life. Woo, I've made some mistakes, but I learned to overcome them. I can see my resilience. I can see the things that I've struggled through, learned through, and become better at. Versus despair, which is the person who looks back over their shoulder at their previous lives and says, wow, what have I done with these 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, 100 years, even 60 years? We look back over our shoulder and we tend to reflect about those relationships. What has happened to my relationships? I either did or did not continue them. I looked back and I kind of said no to a lot of things. I was so afraid of failure that I didn't try new things. I haven't learned much new. I look back over my shoulder and I look at where are the relationships in my life? What have I done to cultivate those relationships? What have I done? That's the question that I hear a lot of times. So being able to have these conversations about this ego development, how I was influenced as I was younger, and as I've grown, how I've been a part of or not been a part of the world around me. And then as I've gotten older, do I feel a sense of purpose and joy? Or do I feel a sense of not much purpose? And I find myself questioning what's next. But when I look over my shoulder, I don't feel a sense of integrity, a solid sense of self. So at the Wellness Center, what we try to do is we try to help folks discover ways that you can develop intimacy, that you can bring intimacy back into your life, that you can say yes to different activities and events and engagements and educational classes and support groups and even counseling or coming to see the nurse or being a part of the different programs that just creates a sense of intimacy with others. That doesn't mean you're going to bare your soul, but that just means I have relationships. I am building relationships versus isolation, staying at home, watching TV, sitting on the couch, sitting in the recliner, reading the paper, but I'm not really doing much to create fellowship, communion with other people. And so I continue to find myself feeling isolated. The COVID year was a terrible year for all of us. And what it tended to do was create isolation for most of us because we were working so hard to protect ourselves and other people by isolating, by following the protocols, by doing our very best to practice good COVID precautions. But what that did for us was it put us in a place, in an ego state of isolation. Now that things are opening back up, that there are classes and events and opportunities in the community, at the library, at the wellness center, at the rec center, at the senior rec center, at your community center, in your neighborhood, in your church. As those opportunities open up, I want to challenge you to live well by developing, redeveloping, creating, or continuing, just picking up where you left off, opportunities for intimacy versus isolation, relationship building versus isolation. Oops. The next one is opportunities for generativity versus stagnation. Generativity, if you can think about it as a generator, you are sparking yourself with opportunities for involvement. What are you doing that's building, that's creating, that's depositing, that's contributing, that's investing, that's volunteering? You're generating energy within yourself, which in turn is going to help create intimacy because there's a sense of positive movement. There's a sense of, yes, I can do that, or yes, I'll take that risk. Yes, I'll risk failure because failure actually brings learning. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but for cognition, for our brains, it is very important. It is very healthy to be willing to generate energy that risks failure. Playing a game you've never played before is some of the best times you can spend with your buddies, where nobody knows the rules, nobody knows how it's going to turn out, and you're all learning at the same time. That's generating energy. Versus stagnation, which is the ego that tends to, just decline opportunities for risk, decline opportunities for involvement, decline opportunities for volunteerism, decline getting out there. It's just a stagnation. It's a sense that can become a part of our ego if we're not careful, especially, again, during the COVID years with isolation. We might have felt stagnant for a year. where we really didn't feel like we were accomplishing much. Well, that tends to play into our self-esteem, into our ego, and how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world around us, how we feel about relationships, because no movement is happening. There's no energy either being extended or received. And so I encourage you, as you're learning, as you're living well, regardless of age, that we're part of generating. We're generating energy, generating opportunities, generating something purposeful within our lives. And then that last one, integrity versus despair. Integrity comes about from generativity and intimacy. Integrity comes about by giving validation and receiving validation within relationship, within community, within purpose, because we can look at it and say, wow, whether it's perfect or not is not the point. Integrity. I may be limited in my ability to walk because I'm in a wheelchair, but what am I doing to use my voice, my eyes, my ears to be a part of something outside of myself? That's how we build integrity, by being a part of something that allows us to look at ourselves at the end of the day and say, wow, I did that, no matter how small or how big, versus despair. Because again, despair creeps in when we feel like we're not a part of something outside of ourselves, when we have been stagnant, not really been involved in much, and when maybe we've been isolated. We look at relationships that maybe have drifted off to the side. We look at things that didn't turn out the way we hoped that they were going to turn out, or conflicts that weren't resolved, maybe regrets that I still have an opportunity to go back and make amends. Circumstances that have put me in a place or a season or a time that does not bring me joy, but how can I find joy? How can I find purpose? As long as I'm looking for that, that's generativity. As long as I'm willing to risk relationship, willing to take the opportunity when someone invites, that's intimacy. And then I can look at myself and say, whoa, I did that. I was a part of that. I experienced that in a positive way. That tends to bring us a sense of integrity. So here at the Wellness Center for Older Adults, these are some ways that we want to support intimacy versus isolation. If you'll look on the screen, I'm just going to briefly go over those, but preventive health care is a wonderful way, believe it or not, to encourage intimacy. You're sharing your health concerns with a professional, with a resource that can help you feel better, physically feel better. At the Wellness Center, our nursing services provides foot care, hand care, ear cleaning, manicure, pedicure, wellness screenings in the form of free blood pressure checks, blood sugar checks, low-cost lab work, conversations with the physician on your behalf, looking over medical records to help you understand maybe the blood test results or maybe what the doctor was trying to say to you, help you exchange questions back and forth to be prepared for your doctor's appointment. We also have nurse case management. Our nurse here is a wonderful resource who's able to help explain, provide education, provide these actual physical services. And then our DME and supplies lending closet. We have wonderful donors who have made durable medical equipment possible for us to lend out free at no charge. Everything from wheelchairs to walkers to canes, to risers, chair risers, personal care supplies. We're able to do these things because of generous donations from the community, because of partnerships with the public library, with other organizations, and with folks in the community who want to be a part of generativity, who want to be a part of increasing intimacy, who want to be a part of helping folks feel integrity. We have programs like the Front Porch, which is a socialization program. We encourage relationship. We encourage you to come and just be a part of talking. We don't necessarily have an agenda. We don't necessarily have a goal. It's not a support group per se. It's just getting folks together and facilitating conversations. Maybe talking about funny stories, maybe sharing precious memories, maybe talking about embarrassing moments, but something to create generativity, something to create intimacy, something to bring integrity to the older person. We do have support groups, and we encourage folks to participate in those support groups because those are some close relationships that can develop. They're not necessarily clinical counseling or therapeutic groups. I do have those within the counseling context, but support groups, if you're caring for a loved one, if you've experienced grief and loss, if you are having difficulty with certain life issues, being able to come together with other people who are also experiencing those same things and just feel supported creates intimacy. And then resources for the unexpected and things that we're not necessarily prepared for. Resources about Social Security, Medicare, medical billing. Who do I go to when I need this or that? Having a social worker here on our staff that's very knowledgeable about Collin County resources can help you get connected with the relationship, with the resource, or with the support that can provide for you what you're needing. Our social and supportive services, we want to help create generativity in your life. We want to help you live a sense of generativity versus stagnation. Our Project Independence is available, that it provides medical transportation. It provides resources in your home. We have a social worker who comes to your home. We have partnerships with other programs that we can try to get you connected to help you be as independent safely as possible. Beyond Blue is a program that's restricted to the McKinney area because of a grant, but that is a collaborative effort that the Wellness Center has with a variety of programs that provide services to the McKinney area. Everything from mental health to medical health, physical health, transportation, financial resources, pantry and food items, bill assistance. Unfortunately, that program is only restricted to the McKinney zip code at this time, but we hope to be able to expand that grant at some point. We have volunteer opportunities. You talk about generating some energy. If you're interested in being a volunteer, we have lots of opportunities for you to become involved in all of our different programs. Our Give Back Supplies and Equipment program refers to that lending closet. A lot of times folks will have equipment and wonder what to do with that. They may have supplies and say, I don't need these any longer. We can accept cleaned, well, usable equipment and supplies. You're generating energy, positive experiences for other people by donating, by being a charitable person, not just to the Wellness Center, but to other services in your area that could benefit from those. Again, I talked about our gatekeeper supports. We have a lot of grant programs that are provided by a grant that allows us to provide tangible supports in the community for homeless and homeless prevention. We are looking for folks that we can help who are at risk for homelessness or who want to find ways to prevent hopelessness by reducing risks that might bring that about. For folks who are 55 and older, if you know someone who is at risk of becoming homeless, please give us a call. Generativity is doing things for yourself and for other people. It's stepping out and taking a risk, maybe admitting and talking about some things that are difficult to talk about. But learning to live well as we age is learning to take those risks and accept services and supports that are out there for you. Our benefits and community resource social worker, as I mentioned a little bit ago, wants to help you get connected, but also start to learn how to develop resources and act on those resources in your own life. That's generativity. And then the last one, supporting integrity versus despair. I see a lot of folks in the counseling services program, and we want people to be able to look back over their lives and be able to find ways to resolve those unresolved feelings, to talk about those negative experiences that influence them, whether that's in individual counseling with me or it's in support groups. We have a variety of support groups that are available that are both therapeutic and non-therapeutic. A lot of folks as we age start to experience a lot of anxiety, stress, anger, depression, mood swings, and trying to understand that can be based on a lot of different experiences. It can also be because of changes in our body, metabolism changes, physiological changes, and it also goes back to, am I eating well? Am I drinking water? Am I resting well? Am I exercising well? It goes back to the question of, what is my living well factor when it comes to creating a sense of integrity versus despair within myself? So as you look at this list, we have caregiver circles both in McKinney, Plano, Wiley, and we hope to be able to expand those into other areas. We have a intervention program that we have applied for a grant and hope to be able to provide in September, which actually provides services in your home. And then we have our Memory Cafe, which I mentioned earlier, which is an intentional engagement program between a caregiver and the person they're caring for. Because caregiver burden, caregiver sorrow, caregiver grief, caregiver burnout is a very real experience that can bring on feelings of despair versus integrity. So we want to try to find opportunities to create a sense of integrity. So that's my question for you today during this presentation is, how can we help you discover your living well factor? Are you aware of what areas in your life you're experiencing intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation, and integrity versus despair? Those are the questions that I would challenge you to explore as you're trying to determine your living well factor. Take a look at these pictures even. If any one of them sparks a thought, sparks a question, makes you question what you're doing or not doing, I hope you'll notice the smiles on their faces, despite their physical circumstances. Living well is a factor that I want to encourage you to discover and allow us to help you. I hope if you have any questions that you'll post those on the chat wall, and that will allow us to be able to talk about that. Kristen or Sabrina, are there any questions that have come across?
Thank you for a wonderful presentation, Nora. And I'm encouraging our participants to provide any feedback or questions or thoughts for Nora in what she's covered in the chat. I know she enjoys hearing from people about what their concerns are or their what this has sparked in them, new ideas. I'm going to share my screen, and also if we don't have questions, I'm going to give you all a little bit of information about what you can find at Plano Public Library at no cost to assist you with these same issues. Let's see. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. All right. So do we have any questions for Nora before I begin? This is only going to take a few minutes here.
Yeah. One thing I think I forgot to say is that all of our services are free. We are very blessed with our partnerships with groups like the Plano Library and the City of Plano and state and federal grants with the Area Agency on Aging to be able to provide these services free. Our only services that do have a nominal charge is some of our nursing services. So if that's a hesitation and a question you might have, please, I want to make sure I cover that.
All right,
Great.
Nora, it looks like we do have someone thanking you. Good to know the services are available. And someone else said they would love to volunteer and are asking how they go about that.
Absolutely. If you'll call our number at 972-953-7669, we will actually have a volunteer who answers the phone. We do have office volunteers that serve as a receptionist for us, answers the phone. We have volunteers who do clerical things for us. We have volunteers who actually help facilitate some of the different groups and hopefully be able to expand that. We have volunteers who provide transportation to medical appointments, grocery stores, deliver groceries. as part of our Project Independence. So we have lots of opportunities for volunteers. If you'll call our number at 972-953-7669, you're likely to get a volunteer on the phone, but you'll want to speak to Michelle. She's our office manager. Thank you for that question.
Great. Thank you, Nora. Okay, I stopped sharing so that I could put some information into the chat. Now I have this back up. Since someone just asked about volunteering, I'll just let you know that also the city of Plano has a program called Volunteers in Plano. And if you're a Plano resident and would like to volunteer within the city, there are a number of areas where you can volunteer, including the library, but not limited to the library. And so you can look at the city of Plano's website for Volunteers in Plano. So that's another option for volunteer work. And of course, we'd encourage you to explore volunteering at the Wellness Center as well. A wonderful organization. So as the Wellness Center has the Memory Cafe, the library also offers an opportunity for those who are dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, a similar program called Memory Keepers. So these are both options to you. This is not something that is proprietary where you should go to one or the other. These are all options that you can explore. Maybe one of them suits your time frame better than the other. Maybe you do both. But these are just options to visit and create that social and that good interaction. So for people living with dementia or Alzheimer's and their care partner, it can be hard to find ways to be social, and Memory Keepers is offered in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association at Plano Public Library. It's a bi-monthly online conversational program for people and their care partners to explore and conserve memories together. The aim of the program is to give people living with dementia or Alzheimer's a comfortable space to express their feelings, to interact with others, to remember the past, to express their personality, to reduce anxiety and restlessness. So library staff lead participants in guided conversations around common themes like family, friends, pets, or childhood. There's time for participants to share their experiences, and then all registrants will receive a follow-up email with a link to library resources about dementia and Alzheimer's. So these are, as Nora mentioned, facilitated conversations and very useful in helping you connect with one another and with others who are in the same boat. You can also meet new friends or connect in a new way with those around you by joining Connecting Seniors or a library book club. These are two other options with Plano Public Library. They are free and open to the public. Drop into a Connecting Seniors online program for people to get together, share life experiences, stories, and memories, and have fun. Upcoming topics include this Thursday, the 15th, Wasn't That a Book? Next month on August 5th, Art You Crafty, so that'll be a craft-related theme, and Secrets of Plano on August 19th. That should be an interesting conversation. So these are wonderful online, you just register through the library website, which I dropped into the chat. You can have a lively conversation also at one of the library's online book clubs. So whatever your reading preference, there is a book club to match it and people interested to hear your thoughts. We have a number of different online book clubs, and we would love to have you participate. Then there are many ways to learn something new with Plano Public Library, and learning something is a great way to expand your social circle and engage with others and just keep that brain active. The Plano Public Library offers online programs and classes on a variety of topics for all ages. These programs and classes do not require a library card. Participate via Zoom or watch it anytime on YouTube. I'll put the YouTube link in the chat already. Learn about personal finance, starting a small business. You could pick up skills in Microsoft Word or Excel or some of the Google applications, or find out how you can check out books, audiobooks, and magazines using the Libby app on your tablet or smartphone, or Overdrive on your computer. So you can download reading materials, and we also have streaming video through Canopy. So that has documentaries and what they call thoughtful entertainment, foreign films and et cetera. So wonderful options for you to just keep your mind engaged. And then find more about everything that the library has to offer at the Plano Library Learns blog, which posts engaging content and resources about arts and culture, early learning, students, STEAM learning, technology, and reading. Visit the blog for articles, recommendations, and reading lists, and to learn more about online programs, classes, and book clubs. You can connect with us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to receive daily information about what's going on at the library. We encourage you to sign up to receive the SAGE newsletter. That's a monthly e-newsletter aimed at older adults. That's from the city of Plano. And then it covers services and programs provided by the city, which includes the library, but it also includes neighborhoods and police and fire and whatever information and opportunities that you need to know about. You can also sign up for Check It Out, the library's monthly e-newsletter featuring news and updates about the Plano libraries, and I dropped that link into the chat as well. There are so many ways to stay social at the library right from the comfort of your own home. We offer virtual programs, online classes, and the library blog. We also are starting back to having some in-person programs available at the library as well. Although the adult programs we're moving them slower than the others. The children's programs are back in the library, but you are welcome to come in and check out books and chat with others. Our next upcoming program that you may be interested in is July 21st, Managing Your Parents' Money. If you are at a point where you're aging parents, perhaps you should think about attending this. Managing Your Parents' Money is being presented by Bank of America in collaboration with the Plano Public Library, and it will help you recognize when to step in and how you can help. August 10th is our final Living Well program in the series, Keys to Independent Living. And as Nora had mentioned about Medicare and benefits like that, this is being presented by the Area Agency on Aging. They have a benefits counselor who is fantastic and has done presentations for us on Medicare and the different options that are available. And that presentation is on our YouTube website, or the YouTube site that I put into the chat. And she's also presenting again in September, but this is about all the various services of the Area Agency on Aging and how you can stay independent. We are happy that you were with us today. You can find more resources on our website. I did put the link into the chat, our blog, planolibrarylearns.org. You're welcome to email me with questions. It looks like we may have one question. Do we have a question, Sabrina?
Yes. So we have someone asking if the links to programs and resources such as Canopy can be sent to participants after the program closes today.
Let me see, the best way, it's all, you can find them on the library website, which I did put the link in. If they go to ebooks and more, there's some boxes that have all the main choices on the library website. On ebooks and more, you can find all of the different ebooks and e-magazines and Canopy for online streaming. That's probably the most direct way. I know we have an email that will go out to participants afterward with a link to the recording of this session and some other information. I'm not certain whether there's directly a link to Canopy, but if you will email me, that my email address is on the screen. If you would like a direct link, I'm happy to send it to you. If you will email me at kaylynscott@plano.gov, I'm happy to send you a direct link to whatever it is that you need. To use Canopy and download online books and magazines and use Press Reader, which also provides international newspapers and magazines in a number of different languages from all over the world. those you must have a Plano library card. In order to have a Plano library card at no cost, you would need to be a resident of Plano, Allen, Garland, Frisco, McKinney, Richardson, The Colony, or Wiley. In any of those cities, you can apply online for a Plano library card. It is at no cost. If you live outside of those areas and you would like a Plano library card, you may purchase one for $50 for a year of access. I hope that helps. Were there other questions or comments?
Just confirmation that planolibrary.org is the website for the Plano Library.
That's right. Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Nora, so much for your time today. It was very informative, very helpful. I love the way that you are helping us to think about aging and growing and maturing and keeping generativity. Love it. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you all for participating with us. If there are no further questions, then we hope you have a wonderful day and hope to see you at the library.
Thank you again.